Hi, I'm Divine Harmony with the Cosmic Insight video blog for the week of June 27th through July 3rd. I bring this forecast to you this week in anticipation of the Women's Only online conference airing in July, the Sex God Yoga Conference. I'm doing these special video forecasts looking at not just the traditional astrology, the Sun through Pluto, the basic 10 planets, also the nodes in Chiron, but I'm also weaving in the goddess energies, the asteroid goddesses, Juno, Pallas Athena, Ceres, and Vesta, as well as the dark goddesses, Lilith and Eris. And so these forecasts that I'm doing leading up to the conference in July are looking at these really important divine feminine pieces that are part of the divine feminine awakening that is happening on the planet. It's happening within, it's happening without, it's happening in men and women. It's a very powerful time to be alive, and I'm really excited to be a part of this conference in July. More information on that at the end of the video. So this week we have quite a few different things going on. First of all, the week starts off with Chiron the Wounded Healer stationing retrograde. And actually this week we have two planets stationing, Chiron and Mars, and they're both stationing in water signs, Pisces and Scorpio. So the emotional waters, the feeling-oriented waters, they're deep right now. And for those of us who are into that kind of energy, which I certainly am because I'm triple water, it can feel like a balm to the soul. It can feel like, if tears come up, they feel cleansing. If emotional energies come up that you've suppressed, it's releasing. But for people that aren't so attuned to the water emotional realms, or maybe have water showing up in more difficult placements in their natal chart, it can be kind of an intense week. And it's definitely a good week to navigate with the mantra in mind, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle. We all have our stuff that we're dealing with, and we're all doing the best that we can do to the ability that we have right now. That comment, I remember when I first heard it, actually it was years ago when I first heard it, but I heard it again with one of my therapists, and I was just like, well, I don't know if I really agree with that, because I don't think everyone is doing the best they can, because look at the world. And what that comment means, what that mantra, or not mantra, sorry, comment is speaking to is we're all doing the best that we can to the ability of where we're at right now. We can always raise up our frequency and our capacity, but where we're at with what we know and where we're capable of moving in the directions that we are at the perfect place. And this is definitely a week to keep that in mind with the self, with others, but not stay stuck in that mindset and then be in denial about where we need to grow or where people in our lives are not able to move into. So there's a fine line there, so be aware. So Chiron stationary, he's the wounded healer. He points to where our biggest wounds and pain are. And they're not the wounds and pain that we find the magic wand and poof, they go away. They're actually the wounds and pain that we have to develop more self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-understanding, and we end up shifting our relationship to the wound. So the wound itself doesn't go away. It's there. And it's how we relate to the wound, how we operate out of the wound or not, that ends up shifting as our consciousness shifts. So Chiron stationary is bringing light to these biggest wounds and pain, personally, collectively. In Pisces, there's definitely a huge energy around collective pain and suffering. Pisces is, very mystical, spiritual, otherworldly, but it's also a sign that has no boundaries and can feel everything. And so there's this feeling of the pain of the world that can actually happen, as well as feeling all of our stuff, that we've carried and that we haven't been processing or moving through or addressing. And so it's definitely a week to navigate with tenderness and care, to give yourself space to cry, give yourself space to float in healing waters. Take some time out, get a massage, go for a walk in nature. Self-care practices are really good when Chiron is featured strongly in the chart. or in the skies. And so that's something to go into the week with for sure. Now, Mercury also squares a stationary Chiron that day, so we need to be really aware of communication and how we're using our words and our thoughts and our perception. Mercury square Chiron can be wounding communication, and with Chiron stationary, it can be exceptionally intense. So it's definitely a good day to have some kind of impulse control, to think before you speak, to question what you're thinking, because we could spiral ourselves out going into our wounding patterns and not be able to get the perspective that Gemini, Mercury in Gemini wants us to get. Water, which is where Chiron is in Pisces, is so emotional, so feeling oriented, but can get sucked into the emotional vortex and have a hard time stepping out of it. Mercury in Gemini, air is about rising above. It's about getting perspective. It's about being able to detach and go, oh, and really look at the situation from the witness place, stepping out of being sucked in. And so therein lies the dilemma on Monday. Finding a way to not disconnect from emotions and be in complete denial because we don't want to deal with it, but also, not overdoing the mind and mental, analyzing emotions, talking about our feelings, but actually not feeling them, and then not swinging to the other side and just wallowing, in our pain and suffering and being the victim, being the martyr. Either end of the spectrum, is not going to be super useful. So it's finding a balance point is important. Definitely a good morning to pay attention to your dreams Monday morning, because Chiron stations in the early morning hours, and dreams can deliver some very powerful messages about what our unconscious and subconscious is trying to communicate to us. I'm a big proponent of dream tending, working with your dreams. Now, what else is going on that day? Oh, Venus trines Neptune, which is very lovely. Actually, the week starts with Venus-Neptune. The week ends with Sun-Neptune. So we have a strong Neptune energy, which makes sense because Chiron is stationing in Pisces, the sign of Neptune. So the mystical, spiritual, otherworldly energies are strong. Intuition, psychic ability, compassion, unconditional love. Beautiful energies for heart opening, especially high heart. There's the heart chakra, which is personal love, connection. The high heart, though, has to do with divine love, spiritual love, emanating unconditional love, not because of what I'm going to receive from you, but just because it is who I am and it's what I embody. And so an amazing week for being in the high heart, no matter the circumstances playing out in your life. Obviously, these are opportunities for mastery because it's not easy, especially when the ego wants to go into being a victim. So that's Monday. Oh, and then, last but not least, Mercury sextiles Ceres, the great mother goddess, and Chiron semi-sextile Ceres, also on Monday. So jam-packed Monday. What's interesting about that is, remember, Mercury and Chiron are square. So Mercury and Chiron are linking up with Ceres. And Ceres last week, if you recall, aligned with Eris and Uranus. So there's this very activating energy playing out with Ceres right now. There's changes in the air in terms of home family situations, in terms of our sense of safety and security personally, nationally, collectively. Also, in terms of the environment, Ceres has deep connections to the environment because she is the great mother. She's Mother Earth. And so Ceres, when we have activations of her, there can be stuff going on with the food, with the water, the air. I mentioned last week that week of astrology was right smack in the middle of all this crazy high heat days in California, Nevada, and Arizona. I'm currently in Arizona. And so that's definitely can be part of the manifestation of Ceres and Aries with Uranus and Eris. It's like explosions, lots of heat and then potential fires as a result. But it's also an internal energy. And so internally something's lighting up. And whether that's a positive lighting up, like getting your will on board to take action and do what you need to do in your life and deal with situations that you've let sit for too long, or it can overdo and it can express its anger, rage, conflict, intensity, headbutting with others who have different ideas about what they want or need. Navigating that energy is important. And with Mercury and Chiron involved, luckily Mercury and Chiron, both aspects to Ceres are harmonious, whereas Mercury and Chiron's aspect with each other is tense. And so this is supporting and facilitating the process of communicating about our needs and getting clear about where the path of healing lies, what we need to do about it. But the key is we do need to be able to step out of the wounded space. If we are communicating, operating, dealing with other people from our wounded patterns, we're just going to get nowhere. We're going to keep on playing out the same old patterns, keep on getting what we've always gotten, even though we say we want something different. Nothing's going to be different until we do something different. And that's why this inner work thing is huge right now. You can't just be focusing on outer changes without doing really deep inner ones. The outer reflects the inner, so you may as well start at the source. I'm loosely quoting Rumi there. So that's Monday the 27th. Tuesday, there's actually no aspects. And then Wednesday, no major aspects. So when I'm talking about these forecasts, I'm looking at the major planetary aspects. Sun, Mercury out. I'm not looking at the lunar aspects. They're more transitory. They definitely, you can feel them. And I actually, when I got into astrology, first thing I did was track the moon and see the aspects it made over a period of months. When the moon squared Saturn, when it opposed Neptune, whatever. I also tracked the moon in my natal chart and saw how it triggered things in my natal chart. It's actually what sold me on astrology, because I was like, wow, every month when the moon is with Saturn is my lowest part of the month. It's where I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling irritable, I'm feeling blah. And, and then when the moon was with Jupiter, I was feeling positive and great. And it was just like, wow, it was cyclic. And I would even track it after the day was over. So I wouldn't look in the morning so that it could inform my experience unconsciously. I looked at the end of the day. Sure enough, true to form, it worked. And so I highly recommend doing that if you are a student of astrology. It's fascinating. But in the case of these videos, I don't look at lunar aspects, so these videos would be like an hour long. Now, Wednesday the 29th, Mercury trines Juno just before he moves into Cancer. And so we've had a series of planets linking up with Juno. Juno, if you recall from last week, she was retrograde actually since I think March, but she backtracked into the last degree of Libra on June 7th. And she hovered there and then stationed direct last week on June 22nd. And so any planets that have been moving through Gemini, when they come to the tail end of Gemini before they move into Cancer, they trine Juno. So the Sun did it and Venus did it several weeks ago, in the last several weeks, and this week Mercury does so on Wednesday. So Mercury trine Juno can be a great day for communicating about relationships, commitments in our lives, contractual arrangements, speaking up, sharing what we need, listening to others. All relationships, romantic and otherwise, are about two or more people coming together and getting clear on what their needs are and putting them on the table so they can see if the other person or people involved can meet those needs. And so Mercury trine Juno is a great day for doing that, getting clear inside in our minds, getting clear in communication with others, putting our cards on the table, and then allowing others to meet us or not if they can't. And if they can't, without judging, just realizing, that's actually not going to work for me. So, it's a good day for that. And it also happens to be the day, and then Mercury moves into Cancer. Mercury was in Gemini. In Cancer, he's more emotional. Cancer is the sign of the moon. It's water, feminine, intuitive, feeling-oriented, sensitive, sometimes overly so. And Mercury in Cancer is a time where we communicate more from an emotional place, which can be great for, heart-centered connection and communication. Mercury in Cancer, depending on the aspects in someone's natal chart, can be a great placement for being a therapist or a counselor, because there's this capacity to really feel other people's experience and relate to them from that place. The shadow side, though, is we can spiral out and get sucked into the whirlpool of emotion and not come up for air. And Mercury in Cancer can be very emotionally centric, like thinking from a feeling-oriented place and having a hard time getting perspective, having a hard time seeing other people's perspectives, can, get overly watery and sensitive. And so being aware of that's important in the coming weeks as Mercury travels through Cancer. And then Wednesday the 29th, Mars stations direct. So we've had Mars retrograde for almost 2 months, and actually over 2 months, sorry. And It's been a very deep journey. Mars retrograde, anytime a planet's retrograde, it's a time to turn within. It's almost like the planet goes down into the underworld when he goes retrograde. And it's a time to turn within. It can be very spiritual, very shamanistic, a good time for reflection, dealing with the past. Mars, because he's the will, warrior, and drive, and he's a very, typically wants to be a very direct planet, making things happen, going out there, doing things in the world or whatever. When he's retrograde, the reins have been put on him. He's been limited, he's been restricted, he's been disciplined, he's been asked to tone it down. And for those who are already naturally good at that, maybe it's not so much of an issue, but for those who really like that drive energy and making things happen, these last months could have been kind of frustrating. It's definitely a time where we've been asked to deal with the past, complete things from the past. It's not a time of initiating new things. Now that he's stationing, we will start to get forward movement. So when he first went retrograde, so before he first went retrograde, he went through all these degrees of end of Scorpio, beginning of Sag, up until I believe it's 8 or 9 Sagittarius, and then he stationed retrograde, and then he went backwards over all these degrees, and now he's coming to his standstill point this Wednesday at 23 degrees, 3 minutes of Scorpio, and he's going to be at that degree for like a week or more because he comes to a standstill and then slowly has to pick up speed again, and then he's going to go over all these degrees a third and final time. So all the aspects he made in the sky, he's going to make them again, but if you are getting the Mars retrograde transit in your natal chart, all the aspects he's been triggering 2 times already, he's going to be triggering for a 3rd time. It can be very useful to check your chart to see if you have anything between 22, 23 Scorpio, because he's hovering there, up till 9, 10 Sag. And if you do, you've been getting Mars retrograding right smack over whatever that is. It's not within the realm of this video to explain, what that means with all the planets, but suffice it to say, if you've been going through Mars retrograde, personally in your natal chart, there's been a reining in, there's been a need to look at shadow, there's been a need to look at where our desires or obsessions or lower energy, primitive brain type stuff running you, where have there been fears holding you back, especially in Scorpio. In Sagittarius, there's a lot of questioning around truth and what we think is truth and where are we overly abrasive with our truth and think it should be the truth for everybody else. But right now he's in Scorpio, so the emotional waters are deep this week and passions are powerful, but we need to channel them well because we can make, primitive brain decisions that in the moment feel like it's the only decision to make, but, in a few days, weeks, or months, we'll look back and go, oh, really? And it might not have been the best decision to make. This week, Mars is stationing direct, but it's not advised to be going out there and taking definitive action this week. I would kind of maybe wait for the new moon next week. We have a beautiful new moon on Monday, July 4th, and new moon energy is building, it's waxing, it's growing, and so if you're trying to start anything new, you want to start it with a growing energy, not a waning dark moon energy, and also not the planet that would do the action and direct you kind of still in standstill mode. So so that's Wednesday. Now Thursday, Venus links up with the North Node, sextiles the North Node, and opposes Pluto, triggering the Pluto North Node trine. And actually, into the next day, Friday, she'll sextile Jupiter, so triggering Jupiter on the North Node, trine Pluto. So Venus with the North Node and Jupiter, Thursday and Friday, can be quite amazing. Like, connections coming in, social experiences that are very expansive, growth-oriented. Of course, Venus is in Cancer, so she values home and family and emotional connection. And Jupiter and Virgo, Jupiter and the North Node are in Virgo, and Virgo is focused on being of service and helping others and healing, but also doing the inner work. So these 2 signs are not like party signs. So it's more maybe of spending time with those you love, spending time helping others, spending time healing, spending time working on your inner self and making necessary self-adjustments so that your outer reality can shift and change because you've done the inner journey work that needs to happen. The dark moon also starts on Thursday the 30th, and Dark moons are the last part of the lunar cycle. They're about endings, releasing, letting go. They're a really good time for renewal, retreat, reflection. Very rich, actually potent time of the lunar cycle. And my high priestess teacher, Holly Hamilton, and I actually are co-facilitating 13 dark moon journeys in 2016. And I think we're on our 7th at this point. But we will be doing our next one with the dark moon. And we have like a 2.5 hour call, sometimes a little longer, where we have mythology, astrology, we talk about shadow work exercises, we talk about, or there's a guided meditation visualization at the very end. It's very beautiful. I've been getting so much just for myself doing these, and we've heard from a lot of people that they've been very rich for them as well. It's essentially we're wanting to bring more awareness to the luminous dark. The dark is not something to be feared. Dark does not mean evil. If you look at a tree, everything above the surface in the light, the trees, the branches, the leaves, that's the light. But underneath in the dark, in the soil, are the roots, and you can't have a tree without roots. And so light and dark are two sides of the same coin. And we live in a culture that's polarized and has been very light-centric. And there's a lot of negativity around the dark. And we are seeking to reclaim the beauty and the power, reclaim our relationship, rather, with the beauty and the power of the luminous dark. And so that's what these offerings are about. If you're interested, you can find more information on my website, www.divineharmony.org. Under one of the tabs, I think offerings, somewhere up in one of the tabs, you tab down and there's a thing that says Dark Moon Medicine Teachings. I will also link to it in the YouTube video blog for those interested. If you do want to join us, you have to sign up by the 30th. No later than the 30th. So if you sign up on the 1st of July, you won't be able to be part of this dark moon. You could be part of the next one. And I explain why on my website. It's because of the website that we do the donations through. They only take money on the 1st of the month. So anyhow, if you're interested in joining us to deepen your relationship with the dark, we will be happy to have you join us on the journey this month. And then Venus opposes Pluto, so that's really potent, especially in the dark of the moon. So the moon just goes dark, and then Venus opposes Pluto, and that's kind of like a dark moon aspect, if you could imagine it. And so Venus-Pluto can be deep and passionate and intense and wanting to dive down and in and get to the root and the truth of things, but there can also be power control dynamics, there can be confrontations, there can be different people, different political ideas, different countries, whatever, that are just like, I'm right, you're wrong, and just going at it. And so we need to be aware that the best use of this energy is to dive in and look at our own shadow rather than project out and see everybody else's shadow. It's definitely a gift to be able to see the shadow without, but I'll tell you it's a much more meaningful and personally useful gift to see the shadow within. And so navigating that day with care, especially Wednesday, Thursday with Mars direct, dark moon, Venus opposite Pluto, some potent energies midweek. So navigate with care. Now Friday, Venus sextiles Jupiter. And so these are the two lights, in the night sky, not counting the stars, obviously, but the planets, Venus and Jupiter, are the brightest at night. And they're seen by the ancient astrologers as the benefics. So Venus is the lesser benefic, Jupiter is the greater. And they're beneficial because they translate a lot of light. And so Venus, she has to do with love and beauty and abundance, and Jupiter has to do with growth and expansion and positivity. And so you put the two together and it's just a recipe for goodness. And so it's actually a really great day that day for connecting with others, having fun. It's a carryover from the day before because Venus does sextile the North Node, but because of that Venus-Pluto, Thursday evening could be a little intensity there. But Friday, have some fun, enjoy life, and be of service. We get a lot when we give, and you don't want to give to get, but when you give from your heart, it fills you up. And then you actually have less of a feeling of needing something from someone else to fill you up because you're filling yourself up by, sharing with others. So that's a wonderful day for that. Mercury trines Black Moon Lilith, so this is a carryover. Last week, Sun and Venus trine Black Moon Lilith. This week, Mercury does. Black Moon Lilith is the fierce, powerful, dark feminine. She's intuitive, she's magical, she's powerful, she's passionate, and she's making beautiful aspects with the planets moving through Cancer. So more carryover of this deep, soulful energy that can be channeled through deep soul work, through creativity, through the soul's passion. It can be a great time, especially with Mercury, to tap into intuition and psychic ability and the inner knowing, because Mercury is the conscious mind and Black Moon Lilith is more connected to the unconscious and that inner knowing that's instinctual. And so the two aligning can be an amazing day of opening up and realizing more of the truth of yourself, of others, of the world around you from this kind of soul-centered place. So that's Friday. And then Saturday, the Sun quincunxes Saturn, and Sunday, the Sun trines Neptune. So the Sun is triggering the Saturn-Neptune square of the weekend. Saturn is root chakra, Neptune is crown chakra. Saturn is 3D reality and limitations, and Neptune is dreams and other worlds and going beyond. The Saturn-Neptune square is a defining feature of 2016. Positively, it's a great time for anchoring in our dreams, manifesting our highest aspirations, doing the work to realize our highest ideals. But the shadow side is there's definitely this push-pull between reality and fantasy, truth and lies, and really discerning where are we wearing rose-colored glasses, burying our heads in the sand, not wanting to see things clearly, and what do we need to do about it? And so that's like, for all of 2016, but this weekend, the Sun is triggering it. The Sun-Saturn is a heavy aspect, whereas Sun-Neptune is harmonious. So Saturday, Sun-Saturn, we can be very aware of limitations, what's not working. It can be a heavier kind of energy. Positively, though, it's a great day for getting real and dealing with things, as they present themselves to us, not as we wish they would be. The next day, Sun-Neptune can be lovely for spirituality, creativity, dreams. It's a watery energy, which is throughout the week, actually. So good for emotional connection with ourselves, first and foremost, with others. It's got a more romantic rose-colored glass energy, rose-colored glasses energy, but it is a trine, so it's more harmonious. Again, it's not about never seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. It's just about the capacity to take them down, see reality, and then put them back on and see the best and see what's possible. And then, titrate between the two viewpoints so that we're not stuck in one at the expense of the other. That's definitely one of the lessons of Saturn-Neptune right now. So that is the week, and it takes us in, next week we have a new moon, right, Monday morning, early Monday morning. So we're going to be beginning a new lunar cycle, which I'll speak to next week, but just wanted to mention that all weekend long we're in the dark moon energies, waning, releasing, letting go, good time for dreaming, good time for ceremony, good time for spiritual work, good time for retreat if you can give it to yourself. So that is the week. I hope you have a wonderful week, and the Sex God Yoga Conference, if you're interested in checking it out, the website is www.whereismyguru.com and then /sex-god-yoga. It's a women's only conference. It's happening in mid-July. I'm going to be a part of it, as are 30 or so more other really amazing women who have much to share from their own journeys of growth and being on the path and doing the work. And it's an amazing conference for women who want to more deeply connect to their spirituality, their sensuality, their sexuality, and understand that all three of those are completely linked up and related. We've lived in a patriarchal culture where there's been a huge split, actually, between the spiritual and the material. And this is an offering for women to find a way to bring those back together within the self, to empower women and to join women together in sisterhood as we raise each other up. So I hope to see you at the conference. I have the link in the YouTube box below, as well as a coupon code you can check out if you're interested in signing up. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week ahead. Blessings.